this is Silverwolf, and today I'll be teaching you how to play Assdancer, also known as the 54 Assassin 22 Blade Dancer. This is the Soul Tree build. It mostly relies on improved deadly dance. So every time you execute a 5-point finisher, your next 3 builders will be increased by 60% damage. This mostly relies on maxing out the damage of Serpent Strike, Backstab, and your Jagged Strike. So first of all, you're going to have mainly 2 macros. The first one, which I will refer to as the Builder macro, has Backstab and Savage Strike. Also, I put in Energy Manipulation and Expose Weakness, which is not the best practice, but I do it anyways. The next one is going to be your Touch of Darkness, or rather, Threat of Death and Jagged Strike macro. You're going to use this basically off cooldown. So, what you need to do is you need to have those 2 macros, and you're going to have Deadly Strike. That is going to be your finisher. Most people will say that you will do a 4-point, 5-point rotation, but in my parses it is done less. So I will be teaching you the 5-point method, which is also, in my opinion, more easy. So, we'll also be using Puncture as well. It is a really hard-hitting dot, but the problem with this is, I don't know if it's a glitch or not, but here I will demonstrate. I will use Deadly Strike, and I will 1 builder, and I will apply Puncture here. So 7k there. And we'll continue to do 7k unless it's critting. Well, I guess it didn't there, but you want to execute Puncture while you have 2 stacks of Deadly Dance. Well, at least 1 more to rely on. So, or else it will not carry over. I guess it's a bug right now, but there's nothing you can do aside from do that. So, anyways, Serpent Strike, assuming you hit within the window of a crit, which during raid it's likely not going to happen, where it's gonna go on cooldown unless there's a disconnect or something major. But why you do not have this in your macro is because if it does not go off within the window of the first 3 finishers, or builders after finisher, sorry, it will not get the big bonus. And Serpent Strike is going to be one of your hardest hitting abilities that you have. So, for the buffs, you'll be using Malicious Poison and Virulent Poison for the most part, unless somebody is applying Lethal Poison or the 5% crit debuff. So, another macro that I would recommend is the Poison Malice and Blade Tempo macro. These are your 1 and 2 minute cooldowns. I simply use it to save keys. Also, Debilitating Tart is another thing you'll be applying throughout the fight. It is, I guess it acts as another poison. It's a debuff where every time you hit, it will reduce the damage, or not reduce damage, but reduce energy and cause damage. I would put this in your Threat of Death macro after Jagged Strike because it's on a 30-second cooldown as well, and it will be applied after you have Cloak and Dagger, which is after you execute attack from stealth or using Threat of Death, you will have a 15% damage increase and damage taken by 15% reduction. So, throughout this part, you're going to be, or throughout the fight, you are going to be maximizing Jagged Strike for the most part. That is going to be one of your hardest hitting abilities, and it is a 10-second bleed. You can clip your Cloak and Dagger in this build, but you don't want to as much as you can. And I guess that's not really good explaining, so what you should do is you should try to maximize it, but it is not 100% necessary. And actually, in the start of a fight, you don't want to maximize it. I'll show this whenever I actually do a test parse. Some other things about the spec is, assuming you have the correct spec, which is the 0 in Marksman, you have on the double, which is a really nice movement speed buff, which will help with disconnects. You also have Flash of Steel, which is a jump. Also, this does have an interrupt, and it also has some cleave, with the twin cleave ability, which does benefit from Deadly Dance. Overall, the spec is pretty good for most fights where the disconnects are going to be really small. For example, Pagura, where there's a small disconnect with golems, and most fights in Tier 1, and they can be used for quite a bit in Tier 2. One key example is an IGP. This spec I would recommend for any boss aside from the last one in hard mode where you need to cleave shit down. Aside from that, it works really well there. So, first of all, I'm going to show you the rotation. Assuming you're going to start from 0 combo points, which I know I have 2 right now, I'll just start as if I had 0. For the pull, you want to apply energy manipulation and expose weakness from stealth. You're going to open with a Jagged Strike. It's not going to do a lot of damage, but in the few seconds it will do more than Assassinate. So that is the only reason you're not going to be using that in the build, because it'll be up for a few seconds. With lag and stuff, though, this build can be annoying. It may take some practice, but honestly, I think it's one of the easiest builds in the game. So you're going to have those 2 things applied, and you're going to open with a Jagged Strike. Next, you're going to hit your Backstab and Savage Strike macro twice. So that would be normally 5 combo points. Next, you're going to pop your raid cooldowns. Well, not raid cooldowns, your personal cooldowns for Blade Tempo and Poison Malice. You're going to be hitting Deadly Dance. You can hit your macro 1 time. Then you're going to hit Serpent Strike, or rather Puncture, then Serpent Strike. And then you're just going to be finishing up to 5 combo points. Then you're going to be popping Threat of Death and your Jagged Strike again, build to 5 combo points, pop your Serpent Strike, Puncture, macro, and then repeat. You also have a Slip Away, which acts as a 2-minute version of Threat of Death. Throughout the fight, you want to rotate these around. Build is really simple, or the rotation, sorry. I'll demonstrate that again whenever my cooldowns come back up. So first of all, stealth, energy manipulation, expose weakness. I'm going to go a little faster here. The other one was just a slowed down version of the rotation. So, you're going to open a Jagged Strike, hit your macro twice, pop your cooldowns, finisher, Serpent Strike, Puncture, and then you're going to be hitting your macro till 5 combo points. Then you're going to be hitting Threat of Death, which you will want to start with, and you're building up. Mostly the rotation just repeats itself, and you will just pop your Jagged Strike whenever whenever it falls off. It's good to get the last second or so of Cloak and Dagger. So if you have Threat of Death coming up whenever you have Slip Away, you can usually pop your Threat of Death on the last second of Cloak and Dagger, and you'll get a 50% damage increase on it. So you have to maximize Serpent Strike in this build to be successful. It is a huge DPS loss to put it in a macro, so I would highly not recommend it. Here you can see it hit 110k, so it is a very high hitting ability. So throughout the rotation, you're going to be popping your Poison Malice and all that. You want to keep these try to keep these lined up with Blade Tempo as much as you can. But because Blade Tempo is 1 minute and 30 seconds, it is kind of hard to do. Also, you're likely to make some mistakes during the fight, and the best thing to do is just build up 5 combo points and correct yourself from there. Try not to clip Jagged Strike at all, because that will very highly limit your DPS. So now you see Blade Tempo's up, you're going to pop that. You're going to use Serpent Strike, Puncture, and then you're going to be spamming your macro till 5 combo points. Finish, and then you're just going to be spamming your macro to 5 combo points. Whenever your Serpent Strike comes up, you'll want to start with that. So it is a repetitive build where you just need to get 5 combo points, finish, and then use 3 major builders, get your finish. Get 5 combo points by using whatever builders you have necessary, and repeat. But it's all about maximizing the time frame between your builders, as in you want to get them within the first 3 after Deadly Dance. Jagged Strike is going to be likely the biggest bleed you're going to have. So, well, it is going to be. So this is really great for target swapping, such as on Gerloth in IGP. You can dot the boss, and then you can also dot the ad. You can get 2 bleeds at once, which is really nice to do. So here you see it's parsing about 80k while I'm explaining it, so it can easily do higher. The only buff I have is from my other account, where I'm giving it energy. Aside from that, I'm not using any other party buffs. So let's take a look at the breakdown. First of all, you have Malicious Poison. Malicious Poison hits really fucking high. That is mostly due to Poison Mastery and Poison Potency. Situations you would use Nightblade Sin over this is where the disconnects are constant, and where the sub 30%, you really need to burn there. Some good examples of this would be back in, PvV and Storm Legion, where there's like an execute phase, and really on the top of my head I can't think of any right now. Or it's really just if there's a lot of disconnects, and honestly in Murdantics, where you get thrown back, that would be one situation you may want to use Nightblade Sin over this, although with Flash of Steel that is debatable. You'd say it's mostly a matter of personal preference. So I know I fucked up a bit with Puncture and Serpent Strike, so they might be a bit low. But first of all, you're going to have Savage Strike at the top. That's because of the improved Deadly Dance. You're going to get 60% more damage per hit with Savage Strike. Next you have your finisher, and then you have Backstab, which is going to be hitting like a truck in this build. And you have Jagged Strike, which benefits from the Deadly Dance. You have your Poison. If you had Virulent, this would be a little bit higher, but yeah. That's about the breakdown right there, and altogether that is this guide. Aside from that, a few things you may want to cover is that even with Malicious Poison, if you do not have an energy buff in raid, this spec can get energy starved quite quickly because of Serpent Strike, which is off global cooldown, using 9 energy. Also, just because you have Debilitating Dart, you have Blade Tempo, and you have Poison Malice, due to the amount of off global cooldown stuff, it really does use a lot of energy. Altogether, this is definitely one of the easiest builds there is. Play for Assassin, Rogue. Against Assassin, I would say it's a lot easier because you don't have to manage Impale. And why you do not manage Impale from this is, upon executing a non-Blade Dancer finish, you do not benefit from Deadly Dance. I parsed it with Impale and without it is going to do a lot better. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer as I can. Sorry for the sloppy guide. This is taken within a few takes.